Well, welcome to this In Conversation With, and today our topic is the big topic of openness. The telecoms industry is embracing openness as a strategy to drive innovation, efficiencies, and partnerships and new revenue streams. And here to discuss this enormous topic with me today, I'm delighted to welcome two prestigious speakers. Thomas Hundt, CEO of Smart Axiata and Executive Vice President of Group Technology for Axiata Group, and Anand Swaminathan, Executive Vice President and Global Industry Lead for Communications, Media and Technology at Infosys. Gentlemen, welcome.
Thank you, Nick.
Hello. Hi. Yeah, thank you.
Now, as I said at the start, this is a big topic. There's really, I think, three ways we can divide this down when we think about openness. There's openness in the technology and technology supply chain. So I know that Infosys and Axiata have been working together on Open RAN. TM Forum's been working closely with both of you on the open digital architecture. So there's a lot of work going on around really opening up the supply chain, democratizing how that works. That in turn is allowing us to be more open in our operating models and transform the operating models of service providers. But a lot of that effort is really there to open up our capabilities as an industry for others to innovate with and to create new ecosystems and new business models which we can find new ways to grow in this new 5G era. So I wanted to start by asking you, Thomas, to paint a little bit of a vision for us of where's Axiata heading in that journey and how important is openness to your strategy?
Thank you, Nick. Axiata, for those who are familiar with us, we are a three-pillar operator, kind of. We are embracing digital in all dimensions. We want to be the next generation digital champion in the markets we are operating at. And the three pillars are, on the one hand side, being a digital telco, and we aim to be the number one or number two converged operator in the markets we are operating at. And then we have our digital businesses with Boost as a financial service and ADA particularly as an analytics-based digital marketing company. Here we aim at two unicorns at least, and then we have our infrastructure business, e.co, where we're aiming to be at least the number 5 in the world in tower space. Obviously, the business hasn't become easier in the last years. High pressure, obviously, on profitability in a way for all the telcos. So we are making good progress in general to achieve those visions. But what we are obviously fighting with and struggling in all our markets, and I'm sure that's a common thing for most of the telcos around the globe, is that on the one hand side we have to carry a lot of more data traffic, a lot of more consumer demand has to be satisfied, both in terms of experience as well as the total volumes, while at the same time the yields we are realizing are under pressure. So that's why we are looking at in a way cost per gigabyte as a main indicator, because that is what's necessary to stay profitable, and looking at what we want to give to our shareholders over time is and high dividend yields, and that is can be achieved only obviously through very rigorous network operation excellence and efficiencies from all dimensions, and that's what we believe openness is coming to play at a large dimension.
And just to unpack that a little more, Thomas, from an openness perspective, you're shifting from a world where the telecom industry relied on its vendors to provide end-to-end solutions, and moving into openness when we talk about Open RAN, open digital architectures, actually puts you much closer to that technology. How important is that to your strategy? Is it purely a cost reduction move, or is it also about you having more agility and control over what's happening?
Well, a key factor is cost at the end of the day, no question about it. But it's not the only factor. Open digital architecture is critical to launch services at a much faster pace than what we were used to. It's a wide ecosystem. There are tons of players and partners out there with whom we as operators have to partner with and collaborate with, and that's what the open architecture is coming into play. Open APIs, microservice-based architecture. That's necessary to really be top-notch on speed and agility perspective. I mean, we are at the end of the day a pipe, right? A data pipe, but we don't want to be necessarily only a data pipe. We want to be a player where value-added services being riding on top, where consumers and enterprises have a variety of services to choose from. And here the openness and the collaboration part with the magnitude of partners is absolutely critical.
And let me come to you. Infosys is working with operators like Axiata around the world. Are you seeing a similar strategy playing out?
Absolutely, Nick. If I were to kind of take a step back and look at the telco space, you know, growth is the single most challenge facing telcos worldwide. And in order to drive and deliver on the growth promise, they have to address the cost structure issue. At the same time, they also have to create the capital investments needed for, fiber rollouts as well as, the investments needed to get the 5G going. So there is a huge threat because of digitization, but also a huge opportunity because of the digitization that's happening, right? And what we see is telcos really embracing this in a on the dual fronts. One, they're looking at absolutely addressing the cost structure, and I think that's where the open networks become a very compelling proposition for the telcos. But in addition to that, if you look at programmable networks and scaling the networks, it becomes much more interesting if you bring, the solutions with the open networks in mind. And that's where Axiata has taken some crucial steps, I would say, under Thomas' leadership. So we see very similar challenges that Thomas talked about across the telcos globally. And we are quite excited to see how we can partner with them in helping them on this journey. And we are doing a variety of engagements along with the telcos.
Yeah, let me chip in. I mean, I think it's very, very important what you just said. I mean, growth is one side of the story, which actually we in our markets, in the Axiata markets, have not necessarily a big problem to generate growth at. But at the end of the day, when looking at the last couple of years, where we recorded nice growth rate at the end of the day. The bottom line is not following suit because simply we need to put so much more capex into the networks to cater for the traffic. And that's where our hope obviously comes to the table, that with Open RAN, with open networks, we have more choices and a bit more leverage, so that at the end we can build more efficient networks.
That's a great point, Thomas. And let me just pick up on that point around Open RAN, because we've been following that work in the TM Forum for some time, following many of the pilots like the one Axiata is working through. And we see that there's two sides to this. There's, of course, the reduction in cost to the network itself, network maintenance, and so on. But in order to deliver a lot of the new services, new capabilities, be it network slicing, other kinds of customized services for enterprise 5G, we have to actually look at the whole technology stack, is our belief. And we have to think about openness across that and so on. And that starts to shift the roles in the industry in many ways of who does what skill sets you have to have internally. So how is that shifting Axiata? How's your future technology organization and the skill sets and capabilities you need in-house compared to, say, a few years ago?
Well, we have to admit that at the moment in the Axiata footprint, we are all still in the 4G era. 5G era is on the horizon. We are probably tapping in Sri Lanka, Cambodia, Indonesia into the 5G era in the next couple of months. But at the moment, it's still a 4G world we are living at. But that doesn't mean that we are stopping, obviously, at how to evolve and how to prepare for what is coming. With open RAN, open networks, I mean, we have a lot more flexibility, a lot less dependencies at the same time. We are not limited to the traditional set of vendors we have been working with for the last decades. But at the same time, it leads obviously to an increasing complexity. We need to have a lot different capabilities in-house and on the partner side to build and operate those networks. But what we are hoping for is that ultimately, yes, the cost efficiency as a result is going up. Slicing and new services is the next level, the next dimension we are looking at, no question. And open networks and Open RAN are meant to give us a bit of an edge on that. But I don't think that necessarily Open RAN's key advantages are sitting in that domain. The traditional vendors would be able to satisfy those requirements probably at the same level and fashion. And looking at Open RAN, I mean, it's a journey. It's not something which is yet to a level mature where we would say plug and play, let's go. Right? Means there's a lot of experimentation and optimization and twisting and tuning necessary still. But we from Axiata, we have decided to go for it and to be ready for that journey across our markets.
Thanks, Thomas. And Anand, let me bring that topic to you. In terms of the changing role for a company like Infosys in this ecosystem, Thomas has just outlined some of the new complexity coming in, which partners such as Infosys are there to help with. How is it shifting for you, and where do you see the opportunities attached to that?
Yeah, it's a great question, and the question is of a very strategic importance to us, companies like us who are in the systems integrator space. And it starts from, Nick, the ambition of telcos to go beyond connectivity. And I want to touch upon the domain of B2B, which is a much more untapped market, so to speak, for telcos. And they want to go beyond connectivity and offering capabilities and services to the B2B space. And that means it requires an ecosystem of players to come and deliver that value to the end customer. And what we see ourselves doing is actually be the ecosystem integrator, across a gamut of players, whether it's the OEMs, including the new age OEMs, or ISVs, hyperscalers, etc. So that's where Infosys Infosys strength comes to play. And with that role, if we combine Infosys' strength of deep understanding of the specific vertical domains, whether it's banking or insurance, it really enables us to actually actively play a couple of roles. One is enable the telcos to bring capabilities, and second is actually to help them to contextualize the capabilities for the end user market, depending on whichever verticals that they are trying to serve. So that's sort of the ecosystem integrator role that we are looking to play across, on this opportunity.
And that's a big shift in what you're describing, Anand, from that back office capability, system integration to more of an industry integrator role. And that opens up a lot of interesting partnership opportunities. Let's perhaps look at a slightly different angle on the growth opportunity, though, which is an area that Axiata is also excelled in, which is making your capabilities available to developers, embracing the power of data and AI, embracing the capabilities you have from your own business. Thomas, when you think about openness, both from a network and technology perspective, how important is that to you being able to allow others to innovate with your technology?
Well, ultimately, it is extremely important because it would be a bit silly to assume that we are the smartest kids out there, right? I mean, there's so many opportunities and tech innovations going on. Nobody on this planet can do it alone. Not the big boys, neither the telcos at the end. So partnering up and innovating together is absolutely fundamental going forward. In the 5G world, even more important than in the current world. At the end, we talk about monetization of all these staggering investments, and that is not going to happen just by delivering gigabytes, right? We have to come up with innovations. We have to come up with services which are giving an edge to both consumers and the business side, the enterprise side. And we are very, very clear that yes, we have smart people in all our organizations, but we can't get everything done by ourselves. And that's why innovating with partners is important, allowing partners to innovate in a way using the applications we are building, the service layers, orchestration layers we are building, equally important. So it's a walking hand in hand in that ecosystem these days.
Thanks, Thomas. I think that raises a really interesting point around the operating model as well, of how you innovate and how you build out new services internally. And as we've seen through the pandemic, this is an incredibly resilient industry that has, I think, dealt with that globally extremely well. One of the hero industries of these times. But what have you learned through that process in terms of not just the importance of openness when it comes to the technology model, but what needs to change in the operating model to allow you or partners to innovate?
Well, it's interesting that you're saying we are one of the hero industries. We don't see it on the stock exchanges. We don't see it on the market caps, unfortunately. There are other heroes out there which are taking our lunch away literally every day, right? And that is what puts us under tremendous pressure as an industry as a whole. Yes, we are, I mean, the backbone of the society during such times, during pandemic times. I mean, we have been before, and we will be afterwards as well. But during the times we are weathering through, we all realize how dependent the world is on telecom services, right? I mean, we couldn't have this session today either, right? But I said, unfortunately, we are not seeing and let's say a lot of appreciation, or not sufficient. I mean, let's call it sufficient appreciation for the jobs we are carrying out, and that puts the question ultimately back to the business model. You're right. If we keep on doing as what we are doing right now, the growth is there, yes, but at the same time, profitability is not there anymore, while others are riding on our backs and generate very, very decent growth rates and profits. So means our business models have to change, and that's what we at Axiata also looking at. That's why we are not just a telco. That's why we are looking at infrastructure. That's why we are looking at digital platforms. Maybe not as aggressive as others, but that is definitely part of what we do. And being an open partner and having openness embraced in our mindsets is enabling actually this journey.
Thanks, Thomas. Anand, let me ask you a similar question to Thomas's point. The value of what's being delivered by the industry is not reflected right now in the share price and returns that are being seen. What do you think it will take to change that for the telecoms industry? What are the most important things for operators to be doing to seize that opportunity?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think they have a parallel to look at. If you look at the software industry, many of the software companies were considered, or even today considered, to be a value stock. The valuation is purely based on the yield they generate, right? But then the companies that have been able to command a higher value, took a story to the market about the digital transformation. And they said to the market, look at for example, the cloud revenues. Measure me on the cloud revenues, right? Don't measure me on my traditional products. And they gave something for the market to hold on to that actually drove their stock valuations and the valuations. And I think I can see the telcos trying to take a similar story. And, Thomas talked about Axiata's desire to be a digital player, and they're also trying to play into other services. Now, this is a very difficult change, however, because you have to deliver on the new products with way low margins than compared to the margins that you make on existing products. But however, the existing product revenues are going down. So it's a significant shift. And it's also complicated by the fact that you also have to invest heavily on your fiber rollouts to 5G and everything else. So, I think it is an interesting challenge in front of them. But that being said, given the role of telcos and the prominence of telcos that have been highlighted by the pandemic, in an ironical way. And while it was an unfortunate time for the world, it also really enabled the world to come together and keep moving without having to come to a full stop. So I think there is a lot more appreciation for the intrinsic assets of the telcos and the returns those assets can produce. And also, I think the telcos are very aware about what happened during the 2G, 3G, and or rather the 3G and 4G revolution, where other players actually rode on top of the pipe that telcos created. I think this time the opportunity is for the telcos, and I can see that there is a profound change in thinking and energy at the telcos to actually seize on it. But they're taking a very collaborative approach of an ecosystem approach this time. And I think that's really important to succeed in the market.
And that's a topic very close to our heart. And I think this topic of collaboration is one that the TM Forum thrives on. That's a pattern we're seeing in our membership around the world. Let me maybe close on that question because we're almost out of time. Thomas, just how important is industry collaboration both to succeeding with the open approach you described, but also to unlocking future growth? How critical is it?
Well, I think it's a little bit the same as with innovations. We can't do everything alone anymore. There is a lot to do. Capital intensity is super high. We can't afford everything being done individually. Yes, there are sentiments and obviously strategic aspects behind, but ultimately that's the future all about is collaboration, partnering up, both with competitors as well as with other verticals in a way, infrastructure, content, application players on top. So there are no limits in a way, and obviously an open RAN and open network story is pretty much the same. At the end, we can't do it without Infosys and the likes, right? We are collaborating to unlock this value. It's not singularity anymore as what we were used to, where there is a clear boundary between vendor and operator. Those are not existing anymore. It's becoming pretty much in symbiosis between partners in that whole domain. Otherwise, it won't fly anymore. Simply, the economics are not allowing us anymore.
So collaboration with technology vendors and partners, collaboration with customers, and collaboration
100%.
maybe even with competitors to unlock growth as well. Anand, would you see a similar
Yeah.
pattern playing out? Is collaboration that vital to the industry's future?
No, absolutely, Nick. I think TM Forum is a great catalyst for making that happen. We can see that in the body of work that we are doing with you as well as with Axiata. It's very evident. But I think the motivation for that is it's not a finite market when you look at the new opportunities that are developing. It's a market that has to be defined and therefore really taken advantage of. And that's where the incentive comes. If it's a finite market, it's one person's loss and another person's gain. But if you look at the new opportunities that we are talking about here in terms of the digital services and beyond connectivity and so on, they have to be defined. So there is a great deal of incentive that way, even economically, for companies to come together. And across telcos, we've already seen they've already started sharing towers and a few other assets in the network for actually, driving a common pool of resources. I think this is now the next extension of how the collaboration will happen, not just amongst them, but also across an ecosystem of players. But it's going to be an interesting dynamic that we have to reckon and live with. It'll be collaboration, but we also have to accept that there are no peaceful boundaries, whether with the hyperscalers and telcos or whether with other players. We just have to bring that level of maturity in our discussions so that we understand how we can work together. And I think TM Forum is doing a great job in bringing all the players together and allowing us to have a common dialogue and build on that vocabulary. So I'm pretty, buoyant on the fact that, it is here for the future. The collaboration is here for the future.
Well, I'm afraid we're out of time for today, but on that note, I think openness and collaboration are the conclusion of this session is vital to the industry future. But as you said there, Anand, There's no clear boundaries. It's a little bit of a wild west, and that's what makes it an exciting journey for all of us. So, Thomas and Anand, thank you so much for your time, and hopefully we can meet in person before too long.
Most welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Thomas. Thanks, Nick.